Hey guys, I wanted to come to you today and go through 3 questions my buddy asked me about investing and flipping, wholesaling, kind of the investment journey. These are really good, so I figured I'd make a video about it instead of just texting them because I started texting them and it turned into a paragraph and didn't have time for that. So question 1, when looking at properties, what are some of the specifics you look for in terms of whether it would be better for retaining it as a rental, flipping it, or wholesaling it? So basically, when you look at a property, do you say, hey, I'm gonna turn this into a rental, I'm gonna flip it, or wholesale? And what decision makers do I have before I put it in those categories? So basically, we'll go through with what I look for as a rental, flip, and then wholesale, and I'll dive in. So when I look at properties as a rental, I'm looking at what location they're in. That's kind of the driving factor, is location, and then I go through everything else. So just getting started, I used to buy in, kind of lower end areas, which are fine. They're a lower price point, but lower price point also gets you a lower class of tenant, and it gets you more problems, more headaches. You're gonna get all those calls, and a lot of those lower end properties typically have a lot of stuff that needs fixed up on them. So I shifted my strategy, and this kind of goes into portfolio architecture. So you want to make sure you're setting up your portfolio that makes sense for your investment journey. So currently I'm not investing for cash flow to retire myself from my 9 to 5. So that's not my major driving factor. Whereas some other people, they might be looking for investment properties so that they can try and quit their 9 to 5. Now, that's pretty tough to do because rental properties, real estate's not something that just gushes cash. It's more of those, hey, it's a fail-safe, get wealthy slow scheme. You build wealth over time and it's gonna pay off, and it's almost fail-safe. It's very easy to make money if you just wait long enough. So I try and wait long enough on good properties. So I'm looking for location and what the debt looks like. So back a couple years ago, everybody remembers the historically low interest rates. That was great. I was trying to buy as many as I could. I was a little more novice at the time, so hindsight is I wish I would have bought as many as I possibly could. But what's the meme where it says, I wish back in 9th grade I wasn't, worrying about texting girls. I was investing in real estate and multifamily investments. Yeah, like, don't we all? So can't go back, but you kind of can. So what I do is I look back in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and I look for properties that were built in those time periods, and I reach out, and what I'm basically doing is creative finance. So I'm looking for properties I can take over their existing debt in those 2 to 3 to 4% interest rates. That's a whole topic on its own. But all that to say, look at the location, then I look at what it's gonna cost me to hold that property. And that leads into the cash flow piece of it, is you can't just buy, you can, but for me, it only makes sense to buy a property if it's going to cash flow a certain number per month, because then I'm gonna lose money. I like to invest in good areas, but I can't lose money every single month. So what I'm doing is you'll look at the market rent, and I'll reference that with a few different softwares, and then I'll ask my property manager, hey, what do you think of this area? What do you think of this neighborhood? What do you think we can get it for? And there's usually a lot of data points to pull from. So I get numbers from multiple sources, and then I use that as my top number, is, hey, that's our gross revenue. Then I do some math of 10% comes off of that for property management, because I have way too many properties to be putting tenants in there, doing maintenance calls. I would be pulling my hair out. I was pulling my hair out with 4, and now I have way more than that, and it's just too much. So give that to my property manager. I make sure when I buy, I have enough cash flow to cover that expense. Then I go in, taxes, insurance, the mortgage. There's an expense ratio for capital expenditures and repairs. And it's a bunch of other numbers that I plug in. And then after you take the gross income minus all of the expenses and a margin, then you'll have your actual real cash flow. That's debated. A lot of people just say, here's the rent, here's the mortgage, great, I got $500 a month in cash flow. Well, no, because if you have 1 month of vacancy, there goes $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 of your revenue gone. That'll wipe out your cash flow for 2 years if you have thin margins. So like to work all that in. Going back to the question, how do I determine, if it's a rental? Putting that all together, is it in a good location? Is it gonna cash flow? Does it have good, solid 30-year debt? And then I pull the trigger. How much is it gonna cost me? And okay, so one more piece is, what's the cash on cash return? I could go in there and buy a $300,000 house with $100,000 down and get $500 a month. Well, I spent $100,000 to make $500 a month. There's probably a better use of that money. That's called your cash on cash return. Now, if I put $100,000 in and I'm making $2,500 a month, you're making, a decent amount per year. That kind of makes sense. So for me, I look at my cash on cash return, make sure it's better than the stock market. And everybody has their own numbers, but if you're getting a 25, 30, 40% cash on cash return, that's pretty slick. That's great. So that's what I'm looking to do, is find something that cash flows in a great area that isn't going to cost me a ton of money up front. So if I can put 5% down on a house that's going to make me tons of money every month, well, it's a no-brainer. Whereas, what am I looking at for a flip? Well, a flip for me is something that is a value add proposition. It's, hey, this property is really dilapidated. I'm gonna have to put, thousands of dollars, time, effort into getting this fixed up and ready for the next person to move into it. I'm not currently doing the BRRRR method, and I'm only gonna brush over that. That just is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. That's basically saying, hey, you take a property that needs work, you fix it up, you refinance it, you take all your cash out and you put a tenant in there, and then you just keep that property long-term. Right now with rates at 6, 7, or 8%, it's hard to find cash flow in this market. So I'm not really doing the BRRRR method. I'm doing more of the creative finance stuff, but that's one way you could do a flip hybrid where you're flipping a property, then turning it into a rental. So when I'm looking at flips, it's, hey, value add. So you do a quick math equation. Every single deal I analyze, I look at what's it gonna be fixed up, times a multiplier, minus the repairs, is boom, that's my max allowable offer. And I just spit offers out every single day, as many as I can. And I stress to my team, hey, you guys need to be putting offers out as quickly as you can, as many as you can, and then we track that. I'm kind of getting into some of the other questions he asked, but basically putting out as many offers as you can on properties that need work based on what they are worth fixed up. So deal comes in, we analyze immediately for, hey, is this a good rental? Is this a good flip? And then the third one is wholesale. So wholesale is a strategy where you're basically assigning your interest in the property via contract. So you get the property under contract and then you assign that contract to another flipper, another wholesaler, an end buyer, whoever it may be. You basically come to an agreement with the original seller, you take that contract and you assign it to the end buyer. And you usually do that for a fee. Those are great for quick cash. You don't have very little risk, if any. The only risk might be your earnest money. And even then, you don't have to put any earnest money if you do it correctly. And then you're done with it. Somebody else brings the money and it's their liability if they want to fix it up, and you kind of get paid. So what do I look for wholesale? Well, in my company, every deal that comes through my paid marketing, I wholesale. So I primarily have a deal acquisition company where we go out and find deals from people that are off market. We put those into our funnel and we analyze them and then put them where they need to go. So every deal I get under contract in my company, I wholesale it, so that I might wholesale great deals. I'm putting out as many deals as I can because on my flips are all self-generated. So those come from other wholesalers, other people maybe on market, or somebody brings me a deal. I'm basically doubling my business. So a lot of wholesalers, they skim the good deals off the top, which is fine. It's just I don't have the cheapest contractors, and I want to maximize what I'm doing in the real estate space. So it would slow me down if I'm taking a lot of these wholesale deals and making an extra $10,000 or $20,000 on the flip, because my wholesale fees typically are pretty close to what I would make on a flip. So a lot of times I would get, say, $25,000 on a wholesale fee. Well, it would take me 6 months to make $40,000 on a flip. That may or may not make sense for some people. For me, a lot of times it's, hey, get the quick hit, take that $25,000 on a fee that had no risk involved, use that for another rental or another one of our flips that I got from somewhere else. So all in all, I double what I'm doing is I'm taking all the leads that come in, I wholesale those off to other flippers, that creates revenue, and then I find flips from, like I said, other marketing streams which I don't pay for. They kind of just come to me. So people know I flip, they'll send me deals, and we'll make those deals happen. All right, second part 2 is how would you decide whether you have a successful month, and what data or metrics would you use to determine that? And how would you make decisions? Let me reread this. How would you make the decision to change things to improve or maintain the goals you have set? So basically, how am I analyzing my month, and what am I doing to kind of pivot if it's not good, or if I've met my numbers, and what do I do to change? So basically it's all based on KPIs. So it's key performance indicators. So I look at, because in the real estate space, you're kind of doing things for the next 30, 60, 90 days. So the actions you're taking at the first of the month are gonna pay off at the end of the month, or even a month or two from there. Sometimes leads that we work take 6 months, a year, 2 years to actually come to fruition. So you have to be constantly monitoring your actions daily and weekly in order to see success in the future. So we use KPIs, key performance indicators, and track those person by person in the company. And then it's cool to actually see those play out, because we know that, you know, if we make 55 offers in 1 week, we'll probably get a couple properties under contract. And then we know the number of properties we get under contract, about how many of those will actually close. And then you kind of just create the funnel and then just put it to work and then track it and adjust as necessary. So that's what we do. We track how many offers, how many deals we're doing, how many flips, we track every part of the business, how many calls, how many texts, all of those things. We do it person by person. So how do I analyze if it's been a successful month? We get a financial statement from our accountant on, hey, what's the no shit, what's happened with your business? Have you had an increase in net cash flow? Have you spent more money here, spent more money there? How can you pivot? How can you adjust? So those are great, but they're kind of lagging indicators. The month that we had in January is kind of a reflection of what we were doing in October, November, and December. So you don't want to be making changes when you're seeing the data from that month. You want to be making changes based on your key performance indicators of, oh, hey, in January, we only submitted 10 offers and we got 1 property under contract. Like you're gonna have a pretty crappy February if you do that. So it's kind of a loaded question, but we'll look at how much money's coming in and then can constantly be pivoting as we're, shifting around the business. So we might be doing more flips, more wholesale deals, and then, saying, okay, well, we have 5 active flips right now. It might not make sense to buy another 5 this month. We might want to finish those up, and maybe we'll wholesale a little bit more. So I hope that answers that question. And I guess I'll see improve or maintain the goals you have set. Yeah, so we're constantly going through goals, every single week. So with my team, we review our goals every Monday and Friday, and we have a meeting every Monday and Friday to look at, are we doing the correct things to actually meet those goals? And we set pretty lofty goals, and each person in my team has their own goal set, and we look through those together. So when we get all of our data back, look at it, say, okay, hey, our KPIs aren't conducive to the success we want to have based on our goals. So let's increase what we're doing and track it and go from there, and then see how it goes next month. All right, part 3, last question. When looking for properties, how do you estimate the amount of time it will take to, I think he's trying to say renovate or fix up? What's the usual time frame you have set for yourself, and how did that decision come to be? So basically, when I'm looking at a property, how do I know how long it's going to take to renovate it, to complete it, and what time frame have you set to basically be able to make that decision? So what we do if we're doing a flip is we look at the property, and once you've done enough, you kind of know, you learn things, and you kind of make a process. So sometimes it's a feel. Some people can just go into a property and say, okay, this is a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 renovation. I know just kind of right off the cuff that this deal is going to work or it isn't going to work. And I can do that very quickly. But once I make that initial kind of analysis, then I'll dive in and go line by line and nail down every single part of the budget down to, the hardware that goes on the doors. But I don't do that until I have the property under contract. So I basically take the same type of formula I talked about in part 1. You take your after repair value times the multiplier minus your repair expenses, and then that kind of builds in your profit. And then I look at the property, say, okay, if it is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it has a dated kitchen, a dated bathroom, has an old roof, HVAC is 12 years old, hot water tank is 10 years old, there's a little bit of sagging in the floors, I just know from my gut that's at least a $75,000 renovation. You have major mechanical things as well as cosmetic things, and it seems like there might be some structural things as well. So I know just as a gut feeling from all the ones that I've done that the renovation is going to be about this much. So you can kind of put those into a couple different categories. You can have a heavy rehab, a medium, and a light rehab. And you can say, hey, structural, kitchens, baths, major mechanicals, heavy rehab, maybe kitchen, bath, cosmetic, a roof would be medium. And then, hey, we can go in here and paint, replace the cabinet pulls, and maybe some carpet, that'd be a light rehab. And you can assign numbers based on that. But all of that to say is, it has to be quick. My time frame is I analyze a property in minutes. I look at the property, I can look at the pictures online, make a pretty much a guaranteed cash offer to the person that sent the deal, or if it's on market, on Zillow, wherever it is, I can analyze that property immediately and know that I'm going to make money just based on the pictures. But it does take a feel, and it does take a second to kind of figure that out. So I would say you just have to practice, get the reps in, analyze a bunch of properties, ask a contractor for a couple quotes, see what they come in and see what they price stuff out as, and then you'll be able to use that and start doing it yourself. Obviously, just getting started, I would verify with somebody else before you actually put in a cash offer that you're ready to perform on, because there are some things that you might not see. Maybe you have cloth wiring and you have to rewire the entire house for 10 grand and your budget doesn't really allocate for that. Or there's asbestos siding and in order to replace that, you have to do asbestos mitigation, and it turns into this whole thing. So just be careful, get with somebody that knows what they're doing. In this business, it's all about who you can surround yourself with. So I always choose to find somebody that knows more than me, ask their opinion, then pivot, make my decision, and go from there. And it's done me pretty well. I haven't really lost any money. I've lost money on a couple deals, but it's usually just like earnest money or something here and there. I haven't had a big lick. So hopefully it doesn't happen in 2024, but it just all goes to who you put yourself in the room with and leverage your time. Have as many people working towards the same goal as possible. Hope that helps. Thanks.